Hello and welcome to another Warcraft 3 audio commentary. This is going to be a 2v2 game on Tranquil Paths. It's going to be me and legolas28, a friend of mine, against some human and orc players, Good Old Times and GGG period. And so they're going to be doing sort of standard opening heroes and not scouting, which is a little bit awkward, but I don't exactly know if they map pack. It's very easily possible that they just guessed a position to rush, and you know, it worked out pretty well for them. It wouldn't have been bad if they would have rushed the elf player, but at any rate, they're going to come straight away at my base, and you're going to see that I'm doing sort of the standard fiend build. Going to be going for a death knight. My ally is sort of suggested he wanted to go for a demon hunter, and I was okay with that. So, but generally you're gonna want to go for Priestess of the Moon with the undead ally going fiends and everything. But the demon hunter is a pretty strong hero in his own right, and if you want to transition into something like bears or whatever, you know, the demon hunter is a little bit more versatile. If you're going for a Priestess of the Moon, you're largely going to stick with huntresses. You know, you do get okay true shot boost on archers and someone on dryads and dots, or hippogriff fighters or chimera if you are going to risk that. But you know, you're really sort of pigeonholed a little bit into going for a ranged army. Like going mass bears with a Priestess of the Moon is not exactly viable. Just because the skills, you know, if you put all your skill points into True Shot Aura, you know, it's still going to give the undead player benefit if he's massing, you know, fiends and the usual stuff. But, you know, you really want to get the advantage of both of the armies getting True Shot in this strategy. So, but at any rate, he goes for a Demon Hunter. And the enemies are going to be going for an Archmage and a Blade Master. The Orc has skipped a barracks. He's throwing up an early War Mill. He has an early shop. And so this suggests they're going to be, you know, teching. The human is going to be set up pretty well for any sort of harassment on his main base. And you're shortly going to see the Orc mass up a bunch of towers as well, which is going to make any sort of early to mid-game harass mostly pointless, while they take into their preferred army. So I've got a Death Knight. I've picked up a Sack Skull because one of the things I'm sort of eyeing is the elf getting an expansion and then me towering it. So I do see his Blade Master running up here. I see this Archmage. They're being really, really aggressive, and I don't want to engage them on open ground. Fiends are not great against Blade Master, Footmen, Water Elementals, you know, in small numbers. Definitely going to be better to engage him on the Blight. Also, I've got a Nerubian Tower here. The bad news is they are going to sort of distract me, and the Blade Master is going to sneak back here, and the Water Elemental tanked the first shot of that Nerubian Tower, and then some Footmen tanked another one. So I'm going to kill this Footman, but his Blade Master is going to sort of go unnoticed back there, and sort of a problem with my building layout. I did not block off my gold mine. It's sort of hard to do on this map, but you know, I definitely need to work on you know, against orcs, especially against orcs, blocking off the gold mine from the Blade Master. The Nerubian Tower usually can do a lot of work, but if they can tank it with something else, say a summon unit, and then the Blade Master, you know, gets free shots and can run around back there, it can be really problematic. Notice I've already lost 3 acolytes. I'm probably going to lose a 4th, and so yeah, so I come out of my base. I didn't dust, which is sort of dumb. Which allowed him to get another acolyte killed. I did kill a Footman though, so it's not a total bust. And in the meantime, my ally actually crept 2 green camps, which gave him level 2. He's going to go for his expansion here, and I'm going to get level 2 as well on this green camp. So in terms of experience levels, we're winning that battle. But in terms of resource cost in what they've killed, you know, I think this is going to be a 5th acolyte he actually gets, sadly. So if you know, multiply that by 75, it's going to be like 375 gold in acolytes lost. And then I went ahead and got this other tower, so you know, arguably I could have skipped that if not for all this annoyance. You know, it's gonna maybe help me later, but probably not gonna be doing a whole lot there. But anyway, in terms of the units lost, I killed one footman that I know of. I don't think I got any more, but one footman at least. If you subtract that gold cost 135 from 375, yeah, you're sitting at about what, 240 gold. So different. So they're somewhat ahead, just about to the tune of like one fiend or something. So they're doing okay. Like I said, Teal's getting a bunch of towers here. Going to be throwing up 2 bestiaries, getting a shadow hunter, sort of the usual second hero choice. Most likely, since his base is it's not actually completely walled off. There is an opening here on, or yeah, I'm pretty sure that opening is going to be there for, you know, units moving in and out. But he is mostly going to be massing Wind Riders instead of Raiders. And you see throwing up a Spirit Lodge, which sort of suggests it's kind of weird to do that. Either Spirit Walkers or maybe Shaman for Bloodlust or something. I guess Lightning Shield's okay. You know, Stasis Trap I guess would be sort of okay, or you know, Witch Doctors he might be getting. I can't actually remember. I'm pretty sure actually he gets. I'm pretty sure he goes for Bloodlust here, so that's going to require tier 3. See him going up to that. In the meantime, we've got plenty of time to creep around the map. Red has pretty well avoided my army. He didn't creep anything after I was sort of roaming around there. Purple is sort of just hanging out. We've got this expansion going out. Like I said earlier, I had to sack Skull. I threw that down so I could tower this expansion, make it even harder for them to harass. Undead towers are fairly expensive, but they're pretty good in terms of damage output. And I didn't know he was going to get protectors, but you know, 4 towers obviously going to be pretty hard to harass. Also, especially with like Wind Riders or Footmen or whatever. But what you're going to see them do is actually a pretty strong strategy, and this is again really that was an illusion. So I made illusions of 2 fiends and then my hero last, so the you know, it wouldn't show up that I had the illusion wand item if I did it that order. The last one you cast, if you do it on the hero holding the illusion item, is going to be you know, it's not going to reveal it to them. So Teal's running around with his Blade Master and Shadow Hunter. I'm like, I don't see the Blade Master, but I'm really sort of cautious to go in there and try to creep this camp with only 4 fiends. So I don't think I do that. But so yeah, and I think I ran in there and saw that he had a bunch of towers. So now I'm like, okay, this is going to be very annoying. I don't actually know what he's going for. He could very well be going for Mass Tauren, and that would be very, very strong against what we're doing, actually, since we have a big ground army. At first, though, Purple actually, at some point, decides to get some Chimera, which Bears and Chimera, usually a terrible combination. It's usually really difficult to get up to Chimera in a 2v2 game safely. So I'm going to come roaming around. I'm like, okay, I don't really want to engage any creep camps right now. I'm very far from 4. So I'm going to come in here and scout out this shop. I saw, you know, Shadow Hunter was sort of roaming there earlier, and I catch him creeping it. Sadly, I don't have a dust, and I don't know if I actually saw his Blade Master or not creeping it there, but it would have been really fortunate to get that Blade Master kill if I was, you know, looked out there and got it. But, and then again, I was going to try to run in there, and I'm like, you know, it's really risky to run in there and try to get that Shadow Hunter, so I'm like, I'll just let him heal, you know, and finish the camp. So that was not great, but it was okay to sort of prevent him from leveling to, you know, getting level 2 on the Shadow Hunter, getting closer to 3 on the Blade Master. Really important to do that. But you see that he's getting Mass Wind Riders. He's getting the Fortified upgrade, which is going to make it even harder to pressure his base. Red's going to come in here and he's going to see this expansion, I think, and you know, throw the deuces. He's like, okay, he sees a protector, he sees 2 undead towers and a shop. He's like, you know, he's probably like WTF, because you never really see that in games, honestly. But it's a pretty interesting and sort of somewhat effective strategy, I feel like. But at any rate, you know, I'm going to send the Lich over here and try to pop off this footman, try to chase him down. So really, we just want to prevent them from expanding and let our expansion sort of kick in and really just overwhelm them. So Purple's got a bunch of bears. He's going to try to intercept here. I don't know how much does he get that. Does he go for the hero surround? Yeah, it looks like he's going to go for. He needs to surround that. He needs to surround it. Okay, so yeah, I guess he could have entangled again if it needed, but. So he forces Red to TP there. Really good news. Teal's running around by himself. By himself, he can't really engage us. He's only got, you know, Wind Riders and Shaman. So, yeah, Web is going to just be the end of that little game he's playing if we catch him somewhere. But he is going to get this camp done pretty easily with Bloodlust and, you know, the DPS of the Wind Riders. And everything else. He's getting some upgrades. I would say it'd probably be better for him, even though, well, he's only at 47 food, so he can't, if he gets another Wind Rider, he goes into upkeep, so that's not really an option for him. But he can get another Shaman before he starts getting all his upgrades. But either way, we're going to creep out this Fountain of Mana. Really good to do it with a Death Knight and a Lich. You know, get the free mana. You can do it really quick. Just cast the spells, you know, because you're going to regenerate the mana anyway, and healing. And so we got a Healing Wards item, and I've got an Armor Scroll and a Healing Scroll, a Potion of Invulnerability, a Dust of Appearance, a Rite of Necromancy. So we're really set up well to sort of fight their army and do all kinds of stuff. Now they're going to press this with a bunch of mortar teams. 4 mortar teams. Oh no, 5 mortar teams, excuse me. They don't have any attack upgrades, but they do have... He does have Bloodlust, which he is starting to cast on them en masse. So this is a pretty... It's really a glass cannon type army, but right now it's sort of really bad news for us because they are going to get these towers destroyed really quick. So they're going to kill 3 towers, which is a pretty big resource cost, but they're going to lose quite a bit of units here to the nuke. And so they lost it looks like they lost a couple of units, and they both TP'd out of there. So, you know, and we kept the expansion up, which is really good news. So I'm going to come over here and creep this fountain and get whatever item I can, which is a Hellstone, pretty good item. Plenty of experience, really great for undead to creep this, you know, Fountain of Mana, obviously, and especially good for bears as well. You know, get that mana up there. And so now, you know, Teal is running by. I'm going to catch his army, so that was really sort of lucky for me, timing-wise, to for him to run by my army. And so we're not far away. So in terms of like saving time, you know, sneaking in that creep camp, pretty good thing to do. The bad news is Red's army is really the bigger threat. These Wind Riders, you know, they're not really going to be able to press my base. But I do have a town portal, so I town portal in. He's got, he doesn't have Nature's Blessing, but he had enough wisp to repair that. And the positioning set up really well for me to TP onto Red's army and just sort of murk him with nuke spells. I didn't totally kill his army, but you know, we averted the crisis of losing his main base. And so now, in the meantime, Teal has set this expansion up with towers. We really need to, you know, we really don't want to let them get an expansion. So it's sort of annoying. I've got a shade here. I'm like, okay, we got this expansion. So I'm going to create this Goblin Laboratory, and potentially I could get some sappers and try to run them in there. But it turns out I don't end up doing that. I just sit at 50 food, wait on Purple's army. So Purple's got 3 Chimera Roots pumping out air units now, which is great news because I've got, you know, plenty of anti-air, which is going to deal with most of Teal's sort of anti-air potential. And Red just doesn't have any. He's got like water elementals and a couple of Sorks, but you know, it's not going to do anything to Chimera, to be honest. And so they're not really in any sort of pitched battle. They're going to have a hard time fighting us. Now, they have a really good ranged army, so fighting behind towers is sort of going to be annoying. But eventually, you know, these Chimera are going to be really strong. And notice that I haven't used any of these heal wards. These healing wards Healing Wards is one of the, in my opinion, is one of the strongest item drops in a team game that you can get, because if you've got good positioning, it can just be a game breaking item. I mean, you know, you might be losing, you might be even, but if you've got, you know, if you can keep a heal ward or two up, you know, you got 3 charges, so you can just drop them all over the place, and it's really, can be sort of annoying for them to try to counter that. You know, if you put them behind your army and, you know, like I said, you've got good positioning, you know, first of all, they have to notice where they all are, and then they, you know, either have to try to focus them individually with some ranged unit, or, you know, have like destroyers or something like that. But you're gonna see it's gonna work out pretty well that they're not gonna catch these. And our army is really strong. They don't have a lot of good anti-air. These towers are decent, but you know, with the statues, the heal wards, it's gonna, and the frost armor, it's gonna keep our stuff pretty much alive. And then, you know, with web, these wind riders are just gonna get just totally devoured in mere seconds. And so now they've got a bunch of like bunched up stuff. Bears, you know, this is why bears and chimera aren't a good combination, because these bears are just getting actually destroyed by his own units. But the good news is we sort of overwhelmed them anyway, just based on, you know, hero levels. Notice that Red's hero is only level 2. Our heroes were pretty high. The orc was sort of keeping up, but in terms of like unit kills, we pretty much demolished. Both of us had over 40, and they were both under 25. You know, Teal had 23, but Red was under, he only had 11. So if we look at the rescourse count, actually it was not great, because while Purple did mine more than everybody else, you know, compared to Teal, he mined about 1,500 or so more gold, but he lost 3,500 more in upkeep. And then even if you add both of their upkeeps together, gold lost to upkeep, they, you know, still came in under 2,000. So let's see, about 1,670 or 80, 1,680 it looks like. So, you know, under half of what Purple lost in upkeep. So, you know, you just, you know, subtract that from the difference, and, you know, it's really, you know, it's not really a big difference there. He actually came in under, so they had more gold to work with, actually, but we killed way more units. We crept a lot more camps than they did. And again, in terms of items, we had armor scrolls, heal wards. We had really good units. You know, Wind Riders, in pitched battles, they're pretty much, it's hard to, they're not, in pitched battles against mass fiends, they're pretty much awful. And bears, they don't, you know, they're not really going to be doing great against bears or fiends. You know, the problem with, you know, Wind Riders against fiends is if they can, you know, limit your number of fiends, and they've got that Blade Master going just ham on your army, then, you know, then it can be really easy to focus fire and get, you know, get secure kills and maybe get a hero kill or something like that. So that's how it works in solo. But in 2v2, you know, when you've got an ally with the units as well for heroes, Wind Riders are a little bit more of a risk, especially, you know, with like armor scroll, heal scroll, stuff like that going on. He just didn't have a big mass of them either. That was sort of the other problem. When you mass Wind Riders, you're really going to need a mass, and I want to say at his largest point, he probably only had, it seemed like he only had like maybe 5 or 6, maybe, and that just wasn't really enough to compete with our, notice our largest army, 93 for Purple, 53 for me. Red was at 53, so, you know, we were sort of canceled each other out. And then the players with expansions, Purple had like a 27 food advantage there, so, you know, it's really hard to compete when you're looking at that. So, really good game. Really sort of fortunate that we got those heal ward drops. I don't know if it would have made the difference, but it obviously made it really easy when those things stayed up the whole time. I mean, every second your units are healing like 2%. And we had our units were pretty big, and 2% of like a fiend, a bear, a chimera, and heroes is a lot every second. At 10 seconds, that's 20%. 25 seconds, that's 50%. I mean, I don't even think the battle really lasted that long, but even if it's just like 5 seconds, that's, 10% of, however, like a hero probably at like 800 hit points or something. So, 80 hit points, add that up, it really adds up really quick, in keeping large armies alive. Like, all your units are healing 2%, and you've got like a 90 food army or a 50 food army, the numbers are really sort of, they really add up, like I said. So while it might take a bit to add up to like a heal scroll level, for certain units, for sort of medium and large, hit point units or heroes, it doesn't take long at all. Like I say, 2% of a hero at 80 or 800 hit points is actually 160. Sorry, I think I misspoke there and said 80, but it's, at 2%, that's 160. So, 160 hit points healed every second, or, even if it's like 700 or 500 hit point unit, it's still over 100 every second. So that's, it can be really hard to outpace that sort of healing. You really have to counter the heal ward or just run or something like that. You can't really fight a whole battle with them getting that amount of healing. It just doesn't work out in your favor unless you like totally crush their army with some kind of hard counter or army size or something like that. So at any rate, that was a pretty interesting game. I thought the opponents didn't really, their strategy wasn't terrible. The early game actually went all right for them. They got an advantage in one sort of respect, and we got a slight hero level advantage. So, it really came down to what happened in the mid game, which was mostly them not having map control, and us, getting that expansion, creeping all over the place, and keeping them from expanding for a while, making them waste TPs, and yeah, but if we didn't have that expansion, and they had their strategy go that way, we would have been looking at like huntresses and bears probably, and fiends against like bloodlusted, probably fragmentation shard mortar teams, slow mass wind riders, and that could have been a totally different scenario. Plus the towered expansion, if they could have got that up when they did, and we didn't have an expansion, it could have been a lot bigger issue. Again, kind of like when we saved the expansion, it had towers up, so that gave us a little bit more leeway time-wise to come save it. But if he was pressing into the elf main base at that point instead, then he probably could have picked off a couple of production buildings, maybe some moonwells, and maybe would have been able to run a little bit easier. The positioning would have been different, stuff like that. Army sizes probably would have been a little smaller from the elf's perspective. All kinds of little variables that could have played into that being a very frustrating army to fight against. Bloodlusted mortar teams. I don't know if he got fragmentation shards, but that is a really strong upgrade for the mortar teams, especially against like fiends and huntresses and everything else. So pretty much you want to be careful again, and fighting those armies near towers would have just been suicide. So if we didn't have that large army of size advantage and everything, so it really could have went the other way. So I want to say their strategy was terrible, but letting us get that expansion, with the towers, it really hurt. Like if we didn't have the towers there, I don't think we saved that expansion. And then the whole map control issue, who's got the initiative, all kinds of things change in that scenario. We don't get to TP in and force them to TP out, so that's 2 TPs they wouldn't have wasted. Then we got to sneak off and very quickly creep another mana fountain. and then catch the sort of make the orc waste his time running around and stuff like that. So, you know, pretty interesting game. Their strategy, probably something to try, because I can see that army sort of getting really out of hand if you don't get an advantage in the early to mid game. Because like if we had tried to press into their base with like a fiend hunt 50 food army, I think that what they did would have countered that pretty well. You know, we'd added some ballista maybe, but you know, it still would have been pretty annoying fighting mortar teams and wind riders and their blade master and, you know, casters with towers behind them or in front of them. Would have been really annoying. Probably not ideal. So, but anyway, that's just sort of my thoughts on their strategy. Hopefully you got some entertainment out of this, some interesting ideas to try in 2v2. And yeah, if you see some people like coming at your undead base, you know, with small armies at the beginning, definitely keep an eye on your acolytes, especially with a blade master. Again, not a totally new concept, but as you saw, you know, if you're trying to fight 2 armies by yourself, it becomes very easy, you know, especially if you like see that you can kill a footman or something. You're like, oh, you know, you sort of focus on it, and then you sort of lose track of, you know, where's that blade master? You know, paying attention to your acolytes might, you know, slip your mind like it did me in that game, and then, you know, you can lose acolytes to a blade master incredibly quickly, especially if that Nerubian tower isn't sort of mitigating it and you're not microing your acolytes, which was the case for the most part in the early game for me. So anyway, this is ScryMind signing out.